Welcome to the 10th Anniversary Asia Smart City Conference hosted by the city of Yokohama. I'm Kurabayashi Tomoko. I'll be the MC for today. This year, the main theme is building smart cities aiming for carbon neutrality through city-to-city collaboration under the influence of COVID-19. How was yesterday's program? The Urban Solution webinar was taking place, and cutting-edge solution providers gave wonderful presentations. Today, it's time for you to meet them, since we have a virtual exhibition event as well. Dear all who have made reservations to enter the exhibition room, you must go there at specified time. You should not miss it. I hope you will enjoy having dialogues and networking with the solution providers. Now, let me introduce today's webinar. Today, we will discuss about circular economy. The waste management session at the 9th ASCC identified new challenges faced by the local governments in Asia in managing municipal waste during the COVID-19. In the first half of this seminar, we will follow up on the discussions at the last session and identify measures to be taken based on the progress in Mandaue City. We will then invite our guest company FineTech to introduce their technologies contributing to the circular economy. In the second half, we will broadcast a conference on circular economy organized by the Asian Development Bank Institute. Now, let's start the first session. All the speakers in this session are speaking remotely. I would like to introduce all speakers. Architect Araceli G. Barham, Head, City Environment and Natural Resources Office, City of Mandaue. Ms. Angelica Alcantara, Solid Waste Management Focal Person for City Environment and Natural Resources Office, City of Mandaue. Mr. Konishi Takeshi, Senior Managing Director and General Manager, Philippines Branch, GUM CO Ltd. Mr. Terry Cho, Senior Urban Development Specialist, Waste Management, Asian Development Bank. Session moderator is Dr. Premakumara Jagadikyara Kamararaj, Director, the IGES Center collaborating with UNEP on Environmental Technologies, CCET, Institute for Global Environmental Strategies, IGES. Dr. Premakumara, please start the session.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Tomoko, for your nice introduction. So actually, it is my great honor to be a moderator of this very important session at the 10th Asia Smart City Conference 2021. Actually, as Mr. Tomoko mentioned, so I had the honor to be a moderator at the last year 9th Smart City Conference also. So that time we discussed on the emerging issues with COVID-19 and how it's impacted for the municipal waste management in the cities. So I was very, it was a good chance for me also learn a lot of things in the new issues with this waste management with the COVID-19. We discussed more on the increase of the new type of waste like a PPE, and how the increase medical waste and the infected waste with the growing issue of the COVID, and the changes of the waste separation, collection, and the lifestyle of the people. That kind of issues we discussed much on that meeting. At the same time, we had a good opportunity with the Mandaue City mayor, who was very interested and make some bold actions along with that meeting to take improvement of the waste in their city in partnership with the Yokohama city and its private sector institutions. So I think today sessions we try to continue our discussions, I think, from the last year meeting. So in that sense, I would like to first show a short video to remind us what we discussed in the last meeting. Let's link us from the last year to this year Asia Smart City Conference. May I kindly ask the organizers to show the video now? As we all aware, solid waste management is one of the key public health, economic and environmental challenges faced by our cities, particularly in the developing countries. At the same time, we can also see that is one of the least priorities within political and development scenarios when it's come to take actions. For example, when you look at this slide, this is the recent publication of the SDG progress in Asia Pacific published by the UN and the SCAP. It shows that you can see most of the SDG goals are not in the margin to achieve by 2019, but very important points I want to highlight, particularly SDG goal 12, which is related to the discussions, sustainable consumption and production, and the targets related to the chemical and waste management in Asia Pacific is even going the wrong direction. In 2019, this is happening before the COVID-19 situation. So COVID-19 is making further challenges for us to when we're going to achieve this target. And the second one, I also want to share with you two publications information which related to the Asia Pacific region we are now living in and also discussing mostly in these sessions. We found, like you can see this diagram in the first, it shows that most of the waste going to be generated in the next couple, like 25 years is coming from Asia and the Pacific. So we're going to double our production of the waste generation. But at the same time, you can see the left side of my slide. So when coming to the waste management status, let's see like a waste collection, most of our cities, especially in South Asia and the East Asia Pacific, the waste collection rates are very poor. And at the same time, we can see the most waste management practice is disposal in open dump site. So these are the current situation actually in our cities. Then we found that after the COVID-19, it's make more vulnerable most of our cities, which are lack of waste management systems, to face this new challenge, how to manage the solid waste during and after COVID-19 COVID pandemic situation. So in the recent report where the IGS and UNEP has published, we identified it's make more vulnerable the cities in developing countries, increasing generation of the healthcare waste and mixing these healthcare waste with the general waste management systems and dumping them in the open dumping or the burning them in the open landfill. And also we found that some cities had to stop waste collection and source separation, recycling activities due to this pandemic. And also it's heavily impact for informal waste management and the collection systems and both men and women who are living in doing these informal waste management activities. So in that sense, in these sessions, what we are going to discuss how cities can take these current challenges and as opportunities to find good waste management systems and policies and the capacities in their cities. So then let me invite our first speakers from the city of Mandaue in the Philippines. I would like to invite Mandaue city to make their presentation. So floor is yours. So we have first, I think, the message from the Mandaue mayor of the Mandaue city. So we can share the message first.
Before I begin my presentation, allow me to express my gratitude to the city of Yokohama for inviting Mandaue to present our initiatives for COVID response in the Asian Smart City Conference. This is indeed an honor. Our small city of Mandaue is a highly urbanized city located at the heart of Metro Cebu, the second largest metropolitan in the Philippines. Mandaue is also the industrial hub and is the home to several thousand industries like food manufacturing, logistics, and furniture making. There are about 365,000 people living in an area of 32.64 square kilometers. As you can see, our population is highly dense. Like every nation and city in the world, we too were caught off guard and grappling on how to handle this new and deadly COVID-19 virus. I have to say, in all honesty, that we were unprepared. But we could not stay unprepared for long. It was vital to move forward and face this pandemic head on, while the priority was on saving lives and ensuring peace and order. We found that there was an area that could potentially worsen this health crisis lurking in the background. The problem of unmanaged infectious waste generated from COVID-19 cases. There was no protocol on how to manage this waste. This caused confusion on how this should be handled and fear of getting infected. Thus, some of these infectious waste were left on the streets, accessible to anyone. But, like I said, we needed to face this pandemic head on. Even the waste it generated. Mandaue City, through the City Environment and Natural Resources Office, focused on this problem and created a protocol on how to manage infectious waste. To implement its collection, an infectious waste response team was formed. They are tasked to collect and disinfect this infectious waste in an identified and isolated transfer station prior to its final disposal. The team took into consideration national laws and got approval from the Regional Environmental Office. Mandaue budgeted 16 million pesos for the safe operation of this program. Our Environment Office then proceeded to inform stakeholders from medical frontliners to village and community leaders of this new protocol and rigorously enforced the set procedures. Each village and city managed isolation facilities as well as infected households were guided to strictly follow the set of protocols on the proper collection and disposal of the COVID-19 contaminated waste. A tracking system was also created to monitor the volume of these waste generated, as well as number of individuals and communities infected. Partners to help us engage communities. We were able to find partners like the Mandawi Resilience Network, who gave humanitarian support to these COVID-affected communities, helping them to be resilient. Although this back-end service is rarely given spotlight, I believe that it has helped our city tremendously in controlling the spread of this vicious disease. I am also proud to say that our infectious waste management response is pioneering in Cebu province. Moving forward, we are strengthening our partnership with GUN Philippine branch. They are helping Mandawi City with the conduct of a feasibility study on the infectious waste management. This will guide us find ways to minimize our operational cost and standardize our sterilization system. Another important COVID response is our collaboration with our neighboring, highly urbanized local government units, namely Cebu and Lapu-Lapu cities, also known as the Tri-Cities, for our synchronized transport services. At the height of our community quarantine, the entire province of Cebu was in lockdown. This meant that all forms of public transportation were suspended to effectively limit the movement of people. By regulating the public mass transport, movement of persons was limited only to accessing essential goods and services and for work in permitted industries and established. To address this need, Mandawi provided free public transport services catering the transport needs of medical frontliners, essential workers, government employees, and the public doing essential errands. The free transport services consisted of buses plying specific routes which were strategically identified. These buses were provided for free and were strictly complying with the minimum public health standards. As the restrictions loosened, more people went back to work and businesses started to operate again. Mandawi began to partially implement its local public transport route plan, or the LPTRP, in regulating buses serving the public with bus stops identified every 250 meters. The force behind the success of this transport service was the constant collaboration through the City Planning and Development Office of the Tri-Cities to find common policies and traffic rules, such as identification of coordinated bus stops or terminals, number coding scheme for private vehicles, and the continuous link and connectivity of bike system and bike lanes. Speaking of bike lanes, it became clear that we needed to begin putting in place our bike lane network. Because of the limited public transportation, people were encouraged to use non-motorized alternatives as mode of transportation to allow more people to cycle safely during the pandemic and beyond. New infrastructure needs to be better designed, including separate bike lanes and protected intersections. In effect, the transport policies implemented during the pandemic serve as transition a more convenient, modernized, and environment-friendly transport system. There is one thing we have to learn from the performance governance system, our strategic good governance program. And this is to make governance a shared responsibility. This philosophy was our anchor as we implemented our COVID response programs. We found like-minded partners and got our stakeholders involved and empowered the fight of this pandemic. The COVID-19 crisis is far from over. There are still many things we do not know about this virus. But what we do know is this: proper hygiene, use of protective gear, social distancing, following health protocols, discerning correct information, and most especially, committing to do our part in our communities will help us overcome this crisis and move forward to a better normal. Thank you very much, and may you have a pleasant and safe day ahead.
Okay, so thank you very much. And I can see that our participant from Mandawi has already joined this event. So welcome to the session. So it was very glad to see the presentation and the speech of the mayor and his commitment to address this COVID-19 situation and the waste management situation in the city. And we found that, as I mentioned in my early introduction, so that's the first step we need to respond this COVID-19 situation. But as a city, we need to think about how we can move from to response to react and redesign our waste management systems to future pandemic or future situations. So I'm very glad if either architect Asli G. Balam, he is the head of Mandawi City Environment Natural Resource Office, or architect Malo Di Ocelaso, head of City Planning and Department Office, to give us any further comments, or you want to add something to the mayor's presentation, showing us any actions you want to take for improving waste management in the city.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon from Mandawi City, Philippines. I believe we have shared to the organizers a very brief PowerPoint presentation after the mayor's, yes, that's the one. Okay, so this is going to be a brief presentation on the solid waste management challenges of the city. Next slide, please. Based on our waste analysis characterization study of year 2021, we now generate a daily average of 276 tons at 0.627 kilograms daily waste generation per capita. As you see there is a breakdown of the 276 tons, recyclable and residual, on the top of the list. Next slide, please. This is a slide that was part of a presentation prepared by the city for the 2019 ADBI study tour, together, of course, with ADBI and the government of Yokohama. What you see there, services and technologies, are still very much relevant and needed to this day. Technology and operations for a sustainable community composting facility for bio-wastes. Rather than centralized, we now assess that we are more towards clustered community managed composting facility for bio-wastes. Number two, sustainable livelihood and incentive programs for waste diversion. We launched this program around October of 2019. But of course, as we were all interrupted by the COVID, we had to put this on hold. Fortunately, we have been able to resume this program late 2020, around November, and we're gearing towards the livelihood part and, of course, working hard on the incentive part of the program. For number three, efficient community-based garbage collection and disposal. This is connected with the first item. Of course, we saw this in Japan, that when we say garbage collection done by the community is more efficient. So we really were inspired by that. And this is a very much challenge for the city of Mandaue. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. This is an output of the ADBI study. We were with Ms. Linda of ADBI and of course the Yokohama government. This is where we were first introduced to what cost structure analysis was all about, because we realized our city has such a big expenditure on solid waste management, but we don't have much revenues. 200 million pesos for expenditure every year, but we only have an income of 24 million pesos. That's why our project purpose was to establish a cost-effective waste reduction and recycling system. Next slide, please. However, this was updated this year. Right after the ADBI study, the output was presented to the Solid Waste Management Board and approved by the board as well. However, after several years, this was updated. The project title is now Cost-Effective Solid Waste Management. Instead of 2 years, we are aligning this with the performance governance system roadmap of the city, which we will start this year and hopefully have impact on 2024. The implementing agency will not only be the MCENRO, but of course, we shall be guided by the Solid Waste Management Board. Now the project purpose has been revised to establish a cost-effective solid waste management through diversion and livelihood program. As mentioned before, we have a very big expenditure, but we don't have so much as a source of funds for our environmental fees for solid waste management. So we're focusing our energies on that, because as the city of Mandaue gears towards being a resilient city, we cannot be resilient if we don't even have cost-effective management system for our solid waste in the city. In behalf of the city mayor of Mandaue City, together with my colleagues who are with me in this room, Marlo Acliasa, the head of planning office, and Jenny Nunez, the head of Office of Strategy Management. Good afternoon to all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for giving further information about waste management and your plans and future considerations, how to address the waste management in Mandaue City. Yes, thank you very much for the organizers showing us this video. I think this is very important for our today sessions, because the participants maybe who joined with us last year program, this gave some kind of a recap of the discussions what we did in the last year. And also it was very interesting for us because after that meeting, so the great commitment of the Mandaue City and the mayor of Mandaue City with the partnership with citizens and the private sector and the Yokohama City, so they took a lot of actions to implement these the discussion point that we had at the last meeting. So today, what we're going to do is to discuss the progress the Mandaue City had done so far after the last meeting, and the lesson learned, what we can learn from Mandaue City activities in partnership with the communities and the private sector, and discuss more on how we can further improve the situation in the future. For that, as the Tomoko-san mentioned, we have a very distinguished panel of speakers today from the Mandaue City and the private sector from Yokohama City, and the development partners like ADB who supported these activities also. So first, let me invite Ms. Angelica Alcantara from Mandaue City to share with us your experience. So Ms. Angelica, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Kumara-san, for that wonderful introduction. So, good evening. It's my honor to represent the Mayor of Mandaue City, our Mayor Jonas Cortez, and our Head of MCENRO, Architect Araceli Barlam, for this 10th Asia Smart City Conference with the theme Building Smart Cities Aiming for Carbon Neutrality through City-to-City Collaboration under the influence of COVID-19. Next slide, please. Welcome to Mandaue City, a highly urbanized city and province of Cebu, Philippines. One of the smallest cities in land area with only 32.85 square kilometers, with approximately 364,000 people across 27 villages. Next slide, please. Our vision for Mandaue is to be a resilient city driven by manufacturing-based, retail, and service SMEs. Next slide, please. Our first ever HUC Walks LGU initiated with the support of the National and the INA Region 7. Our Walks is our baseline data for planning, implementation of strategies, programs, and projects for the community for the solid waste management. Next slide, please. Solid waste management is one of the city's key result areas under Environmental Sustainability Roadmap and the Performance Governance System. The target of this KRA by 2024 is to have a cost-effective solid waste management. Of course, stakeholders is vital in achieving this target, all aligned to have a proactive programs and projects for solid waste management in the city. Next slide, please. The city has laid out plans such as the Comprehensive Land Use Plan, programs and projects such as the Green Building Program and the Green Loop, and studies such as the baseline assessment of the mangrove community structure, all aligned to support our low carbon model development. Next slide, please. Ordinances for zoning, the Green Building Program, the local public transportation route, the bike lane and work system have been created to provide the backdrop for and support to the LCMT development recommendations. Next slide, please. For our notable achievements, let's start with our approved Comprehensive Land Use Plan, a planning document and blueprint prepared by the local government to rationalize allocation and proper use of land resources. Next slide, please. Our Green Building Program has resulted to Verde certifications of two very big locators, the Mandani Bay of Hong Kong land and the Gatewalk of the Cebu District Property Enterprises Incorporated, occupying a total land area of 36 hectares. Next slide, please. Central Visayas or Region 7 covers 4 provinces as well as 3 highly urbanized cities. Mandaue City is the only city thus far in Region 7 to have an approved local public transport route plan. For transportation, this shows we mean business. Next slide, please. For a city located at the heart of Metro Cebu, an effective transportation system is very crucial. Despite the pandemic, we surged on to implement initiatives to promote viable transportation solutions. Next slide, please. Our Bottowano River Ecofence project, a public-private partnership, was installed to protect portions of the river banks from destructive effects of human resources. Next slide, please. But first, to raise awareness of the presence of a degraded river that plays a very vital, important role for wetland ecosystem. Also, a public-private partnership project, viewing decks have been installed. Next slide, please. Another river, the Majiga River, experienced a fresh makeover from the recent completion of a linear park along its banks, formerly resided heavily by informal settler families. Next slide, please. Bamboo saplings donated by private partners have been planted along the Majiga River. Next slide, please. For assessment of urban heat island effects, the city has collaborated with the University of the Philippines Cebu Project GUHIT, a geospatial assessment and modeling of urban heat islands in Philippine cities. Next slide, please. How can one claim to protect something if one doesn't know what and where it is? This question led the city to craft its first ever scientific study with Gibeon Consultancy Services on the baseline assessment of the mangrove community structure along the Cansaga Bay. Next slide, please. To initiate ecotourism, bamboo boardwalks have been placed as part of the Mangrove Eco Park Master Plan. Next slide, please. A 4-decade-long operation of an open dam site, which was officially closed last 2018, is now a green learning park, recently visited by the Japan Consul General Toshihide Kawasaki himself. Next slide, please. The Septage Management Board and the Solid Waste Management Board of the city have been instrumental in the realization of 2 significant studies: the final report of JICA on the assessment of our closed dam site area and the feasibility study on a sterilization system for cost-effective COVID response, respectively. Next slide, please. Our continued partnership with GUN since 2018, supported by the City of Yokohama and the Ministry of Environment in Japan, utilizing the city's 7.4 million kilograms of residual waste, has resulted to carbon emission reduction of about 4.6 million kilograms. Next slide, please. The institutionalization of the Purok system is something Mandawi is proud of. Community organizing for self-governance, the Purok is like your Dichikay system. Next slide, please. Pilot villages located along the river undergo monthly organizational review meetings. This is to measure and ensure commitments to the solid waste management, diversion, and entrepreneurship program. Next slide, please. Mandawi City is the only local government unit in the entire Region 7 to have established an infectious waste management system as our COVID response. Next slide, please. May I request the organizer to play our video? Thank you. Okay, thank you. May I request the organizer for the PowerPoint presentation, please? Okay, thank you so much. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. Again, for this slide, the city firmly believes that it is important to take part in the city-to-city relations and building smart cities aiming for carbon neutrality under this pandemic, like the Asia Smart City conferences. So this allows us to continue to engage with and learn from the experts, like Japan. So on behalf of Mayor Jonas Cortez and our head of MCN Architect Araceli Barlam, together with the Mandaue City team, this is Angel. It has been an honor. Thank you and good day, everyone.
Thank you very much, Ms. Angelica, for sharing with us your experience in Mandaue City and new initiatives you have taken under the Mayor's initiative to improve the waste management and other basic services in the city. So I think our participants or the audience maybe have many questions. So may I ask our audience, if you have any questions, please put them into the chat box or the question and answer boxes. So we will take them after all speakers finish their presentations. So then let me go to our second presentations. Actually, this, as Ms. Angelica mentioned, so the most of the waste management initiatives had been done in partnership with Yokohama City and its private sector in the Mandaue City. So we have Mr. Konishi Takeshi from the Gun private company to share with us how the activities, their company activities has been started and how they are supporting Mandaue City to improve their waste management systems. So Mr. Konishi, please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. And thank you very much for introducing me, Dr. Premakumara-san. And it's my quite honor to be here to present our recent activities, especially the partnering with Mandaue City. So today I'd like to explain to you the recent activities. So this time I'd like to introduce our on-site sterilization of used personal protective equipments, PPEs, and recycling of the sterilized materials as alternative fuel. So last year I presented our mainstream of waste plastic recycling for flat fuel recycling. But today we are now adding another services. So next slide, please. So firstly, I'd like to introduce our company overview briefly. Next slide, please. So Gun is Yokohama-based waste management and recycling company, founded in 2001, and currently we have 102 employees, including 31 in our Philippine branch. Then, as a group of company, we have 3 business lines. One of them is waste plastic recycling to produce fossil fuel, and second one is waste wood recycling to produce wood chips for biomass fuel and industrial raw materials. And last one is waste management consultation. And in our Philippine branch, we're focusing on waste plastic recycling to flat fuel, as well as waste management consultation. So next slide, please. So our Philippine branch is located in Central Visayas in the Philippines, as its name. It's a central area of the Philippines, and especially our location is municipality of Consolacion is part of Metro Cebu, which population is around 2.8 million. Next slide, please. So firstly, I'm going to introduce our recycling briefly. Next slide, please. So as you can see on this picture, this is how our recycling facility looks like. So at this facility, we are processing waste plastics and residual waste to produce fluff fuel to provide to cement factories as an alternative fuel to coal. Our recycling facility's capacity is 75 tons per day in maximum. Next slide, please. And here in our recycling facility, we are accepting various kinds of plastic waste or paper waste like this. Then firstly, we are separating out contaminants like stones or soil or metals, then shred it, and after that, press the materials and pack by a stretch film. Next slide, please. This is how our final product for fuel looks like. So it has two pro points. One of them is its calorific value, which is almost same level as that of coal, 5,000 kilocalorie per kilograms. And at the same time, you can reduce carbon dioxide emission in cement furnaces, because when they were used as a burning, because of the lower carbon content compared to coal, you can reduce around 17% reduction of carbon dioxide emission. So next slide, please. So I'm going to talk about how to sterilize used PPEs, especially from the Mandaue Cities project. Next slide, please. So we started with the actual ground survey. We visited a certain isolation facility of Mandaue City earlier this year. So this flow chart shows what they were doing at the time. Staff in the isolation facility was firstly wearing full PPEs. Then after that, they were collecting the waste materials from the patient's living area. At the time, I remember that about 45 patients with mild symptoms or asymptomatic at the time. Then during the collection, they were regularly spraying the disinfectant solutions on the garbage bags. Then those collected garbage bags are put in the receiving area. Then again, they were spraying the disinfectant on the bags, then weigh the scale, and finally stored in the trash bins. And those collected waste are periodically collected by private hauler. These materials contains masks, gloves, and foot covers. For those one was used as a single use, but full suit was used at least 3 times usage. And face shields replaced face shields, and other PPEs are also replaced every time they are collecting materials. Then after the collection, staffs were coming back to the dolphin area to take off the PPEs. So every time they take off the masks or gloves, they they were sprayed the disinfectant. So next slide, please. These are the actual images, how they are working. So literally, before they collect the waste, they must wear full PPEs from head to toe. Then after the collection of the waste, they put it in the yellow color bags, then and collect it and store in the receiving area under the tent. Then after the collection at the doping area, they have to be sprayed disinfectant every time. Every time they're going to step to the next doping process. That was very hassle work. So it took around 20 minutes just to take off all the all the PPEs. I'd like to really highly respect their dedication of this very hard work. Next slide, please. Then, based on this field survey, we discussed internally to narrow down what type of sterilizing machine will be the best. Then we narrowed down to 3 types of sterilizer. One of them is autoclave. As you can see on this picture, it's very quite compact. Then second one is a pyrolyzer with mild condition. And third one is small-scale incinerator. For the autoclave, it's very compact and it's very easy to operate. But only the concern is the capacity, processing capacity. Next slide, please. And this picture shows the typical pyrolyzer with mild condition. It's very compact. Then the processing capacity is around 150 to 500 kilograms per day. So that's recently innovated and developed by machine. And next slide, please. And this is a typical small-scale incinerator. The size is a little bit big, but the capacity is 120 to 138 kilograms per hour. So we implemented the experimental evaluation for all those machines using the actual waste plastics or fabrics and so on. Next slide, please. And as a conclusion, we selected an autoclave for the isolation centers for Mandaue City because we evaluated from the viewpoint of processing capacity, initial cost or convenience on operations, safety on the operations, maintenance, operating cost, and adaptability to the regulations in the Philippines. And of course, mild conditions, pyrolysis or small incinerator have enough capacity. But in terms of the initial cost, autoclave is the best. Then only the thing was the capacity of the processing of the PPEs. But if you focus on a certain isolation center or certain transfer station, still autoclave is enough. So that's why we selected finally autoclave. Next slide, please. So this is how we did the experimental evaluation. So this autoclave is very easy to operate. Just turning on power and pouring some water, then putting garbage bags containing biological indicators into the machine to check the material's temperature is duly reached the set temperature. Then closing the lid, setting setting up treatment course. Then after the treatment, we'll just pick up the sterilized materials. That's it. Then, according to our several times of experimental evaluation, we found out that sterilization temperature should be at least 121 degrees Celsius, and the treatment time needs to be around 20 to 40 minutes. Next slide, please. Then, based on our these evaluation, we proposed to Mandaue City utilizing autoclave. Then we proposed the on-site sterilizing systems. So far, most of the PPEs generated from isolation centers were temporarily stored in transfer station managed by the city. And after that, those materials were collected by contracted hauler. Then contracted hauler is sterilizing these materials, and finally, final materials are landfilled. But in our proposal, putting up the autoclave at the site, just beside the isolation facility, those PPEs can be easily sterilized at the site. Then, as long as sterilization completed, after the treated facility materials can be handled by ordinary transportation system as part of, because it is already as part of general residual waste. And moreover, most of the PPEs are made of plastic or fabric. So it means that those materials can be recycled in our facility to be the alternative fuel at cement plant. Next slide, please. So currently, we have not installed these units to Mandaue City, but earlier next month, we're going to install 2 units of autoclaves to Mandaue City. Then after that, WeGoon is going to support Mandaue City's operations for these 2 units for 1 year. So next slide, please. Then I'd like to wrap up the feature of on-site sterilization. Next slide, please. Based on this current project with Mandaue City, we are also focusing on accredited quarantine hotels or other private facilities who dispose of a lot of face masks or gloves and so on. So similarly to Mandaue City, by putting up the on-site autoclave in their facility, so sterilized materials can be easily handled by their own, or we can collect those materials to recycle in our facility. Next slide, please. So putting all together the sterilization and our basic recycling. So not only can we expect to reduce the landfilling in terms of the waste plastics or residual waste, but also we can reduce the territory at risk of infection in terms of PPEs. So next slide, please. So as we already reviewed, we have 4 merits through our recycling systems. So first thing first, we can shift from landfilling to recycling, which is sustainable waste management. And also we can prevent flood caused by thrown out the used masks and so on the roadside. And third one is we can mitigate global warming by carbon dioxide reduction in cement furnaces. And lastly, we're now creating new job opportunities to local people through our recycling and newly planning sterilization project. So that's all my presentation today. Thank you very much for kind attention.
So thank you very much, Konishi-san, for sharing with us your good work in Mandawi City. So it's very, very interesting for me also to see some progress after our last forum. So there were a lot of progress. So I think we can discuss more on the discussion session. So thank you very much again. Then let me introduce our last but not least the speaker, Mr. Terry Cho from the ADB. So he will share with us his experience and how our developing cities can improve their waste management in more holistic and integrated manner, and how ADB can help the cities to achieve these improvements. So Mr. Terry, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. P. Kumar. I would like first to thank for the gratitude from the organizers, Yokohama City. Yokohama City is one of the most important partner with ADB in the urban agenda. So today, I would like to share the perspective from ADB, the challenge and opportunity for emerging cities in Asia and Pacific to improve the solid waste management system. Next slide, please. So I would like to provide some basic solid waste management statistic in the regions. So this slide provide you the information that according to the Waste Management Outlook published in 2017, Asia is the largest solid waste generating continent in the world. It total together generate about 150,000 to 760,000 tons per day. That's a huge number. And compounding on that, the cities are actually expect to generate 1.8 billion tons of solid waste by the year of 2025, which is compared to now is in 2012 is only 0.28 billion tons. So that means in 13 years is grow by 6 times. Next slide, please. So in terms of the ADB's support, we see in last 10 years, we have invest in the solid waste portfolios about more than 800 millions. But actually, it's only it's about you can see the figures is only a tiny fraction of the total investment by ADB. So that's tells us there's not enough investment. There's still a big gap, and then but now we see a trend. In fact, recently we will see a quite big demand from the solid waste investment. Next slide, please. So what we see, the key challenge in the cities in Asia. First, we see that because due to the increased population, weapon growth of the urbanization and this industrializations, the volume of the solid waste has been grown substantially. And then cities in the Asia are responsible for solid waste disposal and sewage handling and treatment traditionally. But now, due to the growth, they are facing inadequate of the fund, lack of the rules, regulation, and standards, technical know-how, and of course, it results in the inadequate waste collection facility like the vehicle and equipment. And take an example in one of our member country, Pakistan, in the top 10 cities, their waste generation rate increase is double than their the growth rate in the same periods, according to the recent publication from the World Bank, Water Waste 2.0. Next slide, please. But how are we going to deal with this? We'd like to share our I won't say silver bullet, but this is one way we can learn from the best global best practice and our honorable city of Yokohama. It always shape some innovative idea to us. So in this slide, from the figure, you can see that there's a decrease of reduction of the solid waste in between 2001 and 2007, and in fact, and then we will see why it is result like that. Basically, you can see that this because of the implementation of the 3R policy, reduce, recycle, and the citizen collaboration, because they implement mandatory separation at the source, and how they achieve around 43% of reduction in 10 years time between 2001 and 2010. And what you can achieve is they reduce from the 1.6 million tons of waste from 2001 to less than 1 million tons of waste by 2010. And it leads to the substantial cost saving and revenue from the general revenue from the recycling. So first, we of course due to the reduced cost, reduce the waste generation, and they can close of the 2 incinerators because of the reduce of waste, and then it can save about 1.1 billion US$ capital cost of incineration reconstructions. And also, each year they can save 6 million per year for the waste management service due to reduced waste, and 30 million per year for the reduced incinerations maintenance costs. If they keep those incineration plant running, they need to pay for this cost. But due to the reduced waste, they don't need to. And of course, the longer life of the landfill site. Next slide, please. And we like to really can tell from the case of the Yokohama actually shows that the separation collection of the waste is a precondition for transiting from waste to source management and fostering high quality recycling rate in the cities. And we would like to cite a recent publication from Asia Development Bank Institute policy brief, solid waste management in developing Asia, prioritizing waste separation. There's a 3 key takeaway. First is the waste needs to be seen as a resource, with recycling being the preferred options rather than disposal. Second, will be the local policymakers need to understand the links between solid waste management target and the others sustainable development goals, and that achieving the former would advance the latest. The last is understanding waste flow is essential to identify and obtain the most reliable information and on recycling activity for both formal and informal sectors in the cities. At the left-hand side, there's a step to developing a successful waste separation plan. And in fact, it is not, you may be curious, is it only apply for the advanced city in Yokohama? The answer is no. This plan is jointly prepared between the Yokohama and then the 4 cities, including Mandarin cities from the Philippines, Mandawa City from the Philippines, when they have a training workshop back in 2019. So it is jointly prepared, and then we can see to adopt from the best practice from the Yokohama and combine with the local context with the 4 emerging city in the Asia. Next slide, please. And then you will ask how we going to promote this new approach. So we would like to introduce you to the integrated solid waste management, which is actually is a comprehensive framework for solid waste management, and it includes all aspects of running an efficiency, coordinated solid waste management system, including the waste hierarchy, stakeholders, policy and legal, technological, financial, economic, environmental, and institutional aspects. The aim of this integrated solid waste management framework is to manage the solid waste management system in a way that is environmentally, financially, and socially sustainable. Next slide, please. And at the last slide, I would like to share a new way of thinking, the way forward, the opportunity for ADB and our developing member countries. So we like to, you can see from the at the right-hand side, there's a graph to show the current waste hierarchy and how we're going to transform into the circular economy. Now we are still in the waste hierarchy to trying to promote the best practice, but in the future, we would like to really step into the territory of the circular economy. And how we're going to do that? We say there's a few point taken, like the synergical policy frameworks and regulation for solid waste management, and the collaboration, systematical collaboration between the sectors, and leveraging opportunity for the climate finance, and introduce the new technology and practice in the solid waste management cycle. And also we have to engage the citizen to collaborate to induce the behavior change, but not only to the citizen, but also the manufacturer and the government, and also the other cost-cutting sectors. And also we see there's a lack of funding issue, so we should try to supporting a greater private sector role in the solid waste, not only for the finance, but also for the efficiency, technology, and expertise. And there's a new emerging technology like the satellite and communication technology and data collection can help to improve the planning, process control, governance, and accountability. And lastly, but not the least, is which in the Asia city, there's a sizable informal sectors. So we need to ensuring the sustainable way to integrate those informal workers into this new approach and be part of the process chain for the solid waste management. Thank you. I will stop here, and then I'm looking forward to answer you any question you want to raise. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Terry, for a nice presentation and making us aware that we need to change from the waste management to first 3R, but it is not the end. So we have to thinking about the importance of the circular economy. So I think that's a good points that we can have enter the discussions. Can I ask all speakers to show their videos? So we have another 10, 12 minutes, the remaining to have short discussions. I also have a couple of questions from the audience for all of you. So let me start from again to thanking you to have a very good presentations, all of you. So thank you very much. And the first question to the Miss Angelica. So there is a question that you had done quite good work. So, and also you developed the 10-year waste management plan. So what is the next activity you think that the city need to take to improve the waste management collection and the disposal system? So what is the next priority the city based on your waste management plan and the ongoing activities?
Yeah, thank you very Marasan for these questions and to the audience. For our response, there are strategies that the cities are currently implementing. First, our cost-effective solid waste management in alignment on our performance governance system. So we are targeting to execute it by 2024. So how do we achieve that to be a cost-effective solid waste management for the city of Mandaue? First is we need to institutionalize our solid waste management initiatives, and also the establishment of waste diversion and entrepreneurship programs. So as you can see on our presentations, we have this monthly meeting with the community leaders and to measure their commitment, and if they have issues and concerns during the execution of our programs. All in all is we guide them on how to properly manage their waste and to focus on the reduction of their generation and disposal to the sanitary landfill. So the objective of our strategies is to empower and engage the community to be resilient with our pandemic right now.
Thank you very much. So if I understand it clearly, so the rather than the collection and the disposal, so you are taking much on the reduction at the source with involving the communities. I think that's a good point, that when we're looking at the 3R and the circular economy perspective. So thank you very much. So then let me go to the Konishi-san. There is one question. So it's interesting that the Japanese private company moving to developing city and starting a new business models. This is not easy actually. And how you find when you start in this work with Mandaue City, what kind of challenges were found in the beginning to start your business models?
Yes, thank you very much for asking the question. So yes, so basically, many people would ask me why GUN decided to enter commercial scale plastic recycling in Cebu or in abroad. Yes, so there is a substantial risk for us to get into the recycling business. But we, as a company, decided to look at the long-term plan. So meaning in the financial side. So if you're going to depreciate the initial cost in a short term, it's very difficult to maintain in the business. But if you look at the long-term depreciation, you can work with the LGUs or private companies through in a long term. So yes, so there are so many challenges because, for example, the relatively very low tipping fee price, market price, and also in some areas the segregation, separated collection are not enough. But we're going to walk you through it. So we don't expect the perfect segregated materials from the start. So we will giving feedback and think about it together with the LGUs, together with our clients. So that is the most important thing, and challenges, but important point, I think.
Thank you very much. I got another new question for you, Konishi-san. So our participants, one of the participants asked, tell us about the level of virus adherence to the PPE at the disposal stage after you collected the PPE. So did you check the virus level of the PPE when you're doing that, recycling them in your plant?
Well, actually, it's almost impossible to check how many of virus cells remain in the materials. But to ensure the virus or bacteria are already killed, so we're going to use the biological indicator to check if the material's temperature already reached the 121 or 125 degrees Celsius. So that's a very important point.
Thank you very much. So I think that's a good answer for that question. So then I have one question for the Mr. Terry also, because it's mentioned that you mentioned it's important to the cities to consider moving from the 3R to circular economy. So it's not easy at the same time with the developing countries and the cities to consider like a circular economy kind of a concept in the very beginning, but they had to start thinking about that. What should be the first step that the cities can consider when making their waste management system to be transferred to the circular economy?
Thank you, Dr. Pukama. It's a very valid question. I think the first point is moving from what we call the silo thinking manners. So used to be we think solid waste management is one small sectors, but when we want to transfer from the 3Rs, transform from the 3R approach to the circular economy goals, you need to engage with other sectors. For example, the presenter of the new technology, they are recycling the plastic into as a fuel, and also the cement as a fuel for cement plant or for others. So literally, you need to engage with the energy sectors, and also when you're talking about to promote the bio composting of the waste. In fact, you are engaging with the agriculture and food sectors. So how they have a perspective, how their perspective affecting you to design your process to change your byproduct into their raw material. You need to considering from this far end, like such as why we keep saying the waste separation is important. It's a preconditions. If you want to really recover the energy, you need really take out those low energy component from your byproduct. So that's the way why the plastic recycle is good for the energy recovery, and also vice versa. If you considering for the composting, then you have to considering the biodegradable part of the waste. So this kind of thinking. So you see, this is actually you need to have a cost-center approach. In addition to only for the silo thinking. Thank you. I hope I can answer you.
Yes, that's a good point. So actually, that was we discussed in the report that you mentioned, like ADBI, like a policy brief when we making with the Yokohama city and the case study cities. So this is the point that we came for that. Actually, we thought the first thing should be a source separation. So if the cities can start source separation, so they can understand what is the waste, what is the resources. So I think that's a quite good answer. So I have a very last questions from the audience. So asking how we can educate people and integrate the informal or the low income sectors to the waste management. I think this question can be answered either Konishi-san or the Angelica from Mandaway City, how they handle this issue when they are waste management systems. May I ask either Angelica or the Konishi-san to respond this question?
Okay, let me answer to that question. So currently, we are not hiring those waste pickers in our facility. But from my experience in the pilot project sponsored by JICA in Cebu City, at that time we put up small-scale plastic recycling facility in Inayawan landfill site in Cebu City. At that time, Cebu City hired 15 waste pickers out of around 600 waste pickers around there. Then the important thing is, yes, so from the aspect of the education, if you explain to them and educate to them what kind of materials can be recycled and what kind of materials cannot be recycled. So I think it is not so difficult thing because they have already knew what kind of materials can be recycled. And other aspects for example, work attitude or the attendance management. So those things could be the main agenda. So for that, in our experiences, if someone attended perfectly in a monthly basis, so we gave rice, a sack of rice to them, and so on. So to motivate them is very important thing. So education and motivation, those kind of things.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yes, for Mandawi City local government, what we're doing here, we engage the community through our system because we have seen that it's very powerful to empower them and to engage whatever programs for solid waste management that will be that the community will be benefited, and also a monthly discussion with them through the awareness and concerns in the grassroots level.
Yes. Thank you very much. I think we have almost come to the end of our time of the session. So for me, as a member who joined the last meeting and this meeting, I found and learned a lot in the new programs. We continue this in that way with Yokohama City and Mandawi City City-to-City cooperation, and we can make more progress in the next year Asia conference. So I'm looking forward to learn further from you and see the more progress in Mandawi City in the next year, considering this holistic waste management approach. So thank you once again for all our speakers for their valuable presentations and the thoughts. So thank you very much. So I will pass finish our session now and pass the session to the coordinator. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So Ms. Tomoko, for you.
Thank you to the other presentators. This is the end of the first half session. I was deeply impressed at the GUN's activities in Mandawi City in Philippines. If you wish to have a contact with GUN, please click the exhibitor searching page from the upper tab on the AECC website. You can get the contact address. And GUN is now exhibiting at the virtual exhibition room 2 on the theme of circular economy. If you are a registered participant, please visit the room on the time you have made a reservation. We have finished all the program for today.